Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I know that most of us are on break between Christmas and New Year's, so we thought we would use this week as an opportunity to do a bit of a recap from some of the conversations we had this last year. And we pulled 10 or 12 clips of some of your favorite guests and your favorite topics that were rated or that we got comments on, and thought we'd just share those with you, and then I'd provide some commentary to tell you my thoughts on what they shared with us. So buckle up and dig in, get some popcorn, and we'll start going through this last year's episodes of the Mobile Workforce Podcast. All right, so this first clip, we're going to hear from James Benham. James is the president of JB Knowledge and was a very popular guest, popular episode. And he's known as a construction technologist and an expert in the industry. And so with James, basically the episode that we had him on, we were talking about the technology trends that are gaining momentum for 2021. And we highlight some of the things that he learned in his study for their JB Knowledge Construction Technology Report. So let's take a listen to James, and then I'll share my thoughts and feelings on what he shared with us.
I'd say, well, one of the glaringly obvious things is that spending is really not materially moving north, and I would like to see it moving north faster. So that's probably a disappointing side of things, that spending just isn't budging off of center, right? Secondly, we are continuing to see a big push into mobility. That wave is not a fad. It didn't die off, right? I mean, you're seeing, but we are seeing a desire from contractors to start consolidating some of their mobile solutions. So maybe instead of using 10, they want to use 5. So you're seeing some consolidation. Of course, you're seeing consolidation in general in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But you see that too. Like going digital means you're going to originate digitally. You're going to log the data digitally. You're going to route and workflow that data digitally. It's never going to get turned into an image. Anytime you're routing an image, that's paperless, and it's really a 90s solution to a 2021 problem. So that's certainly something else that we saw from the report.
All right. So a couple of my takeaways from what James shared with us is, first of all, in construction, the IT spend has got to improve. We've got to do a better job at allocating more money and more resources to our IT initiatives. And we really need to be more on purpose with these things. There have been several studies that I have, and surveys that I've heard and listened to and watched and also dug into. And they all say that essentially construction, aside from agriculture and farming, is the very last of the major industries in the economy that are investing in technology and IT spend. So they're not spending near the money that all of the other industries are spending for these initiatives. The thing about it is, statistically also, the U.S. economy, the GDP, is made up of 6.3% related to the construction industry. And so because that is such a huge part of the global economy and of our national economy here in the United States, it is interesting to me that we're not spending more of that resource and that money on getting better and improving and adopting these technology tools. So that's one thing. Also in their 2020 JB Knowledge Construction Technology Report, they also stated that in the last 5 years, the average has been 93 to 94% of construction companies are using their mobile devices, so smartphones, for tracking their jobs, basically work initiatives. And so we don't have the same problem we used to have where the technology just wasn't available in the field. And now that there are mobile apps in so many different aspects of the construction work that we do have the ability, we do have those tools. James also mentioned that companies are consolidating some of those tools. So some companies maybe had 10 apps to do different things within their business out in the field. and they've consolidated down to maybe 5. So my takeaway is companies need to adopt best of breed point solutions, maybe platform solutions that can actually integrate and feed that data to their ERP, their job cost accounting, their payroll systems, so that they're getting better data quicker using the mobile tools that already exist in the marketplace. So essentially, the takeaway, let's dedicate more of our resources, increase that IT spend and budget for software solutions, cloud-based technologies that are going to make the job site run more efficiently. And then in the field, let's get the teams plugged into mobile apps that are actually going to help us solve these challenges and feed that system of record in the back end office and make sure that our payroll is accurate. All right, in this next one, we speak with Anirban Basu. That's actually Dr. Anirban Basu. And what he talks about is how the construction industry is increasing their capacity today. And that's more about the labor force and the workforce. So let's take a listen to Anirban, and then I'll weigh in on what I think.
Here's one of the things we've learned globally. We've learned that it's pretty easy to destroy your capacity. So it's pretty easy to lay off workers. It's pretty easy to shut down a manufacturing plant and take a tax write-off. It's very hard to rehire people and to reopen facilities. That's what we've found. And that's the thing we're dealing with right now. A lot of capacity was destroyed early in the crisis because people said, oh, it's going to be a deep recession. It's going to be 2008 again, and we need to cut costs right now to survive. And then all of a sudden the economy turns around as early as May of 2020. We start to add millions of jobs by that point. But now you have to rehire those workers. Where are they? Hard to rehire. You have to reopen those facilities. How are you going to do that? That's expensive. And so at the end of the day, that's the struggle we're part of right now, trying to get back up to speed to meet all the demand that's out there. And so that's what we've learned. And so if you destroy capacity as a firm, you better be careful because you never know when you're going to need it again.
All right. So what we heard from Dr. Basu, who's known as an expert in not just construction technology, but also mainly an economist for construction. So he's kind of an economy guy, a guy that knows the numbers. He's with Sage Policy Group. But I always say he's got a hard hat on in his office because he leans heavily into construction. Keynote speaker at CFMA, again, a very powerful voice to our industry for the economy. And so what he is saying here is that companies are busy. Backlogs are up. They can't get to all their projects. They're short-staffed. They're short-handed. We don't have enough skilled labor out there. As I've traveled the country this last 4 to 6 months, some of the trade shows and conferences have got going again. And I've had the opportunity to talk with people from all over the place, all over North America, including Canada. And in many of those cases, people can't find enough skilled labor. And so I think he's saying, let's be a little bit more on purpose with our hiring practices and training and recruiting. More of the full episode talks about that, how we can recruit from other pools of talent, women, younger folks, colleges, universities, trade schools. So I think the lesson here is let's not have an itchy trigger finger when it comes to the ebb and flow of our deal flow right now. Let's make sure that we have enough labor on hand so that as we continually get busy and busier, that we have the resources that we need to complete those projects and to keep ahead. All right, in this next clip, we're going to hear from Frank DiLorenzo and also Ben Harrison, and they are from Preferred Strategies. And what they talk about is the importance of data visualization and why we're doing that, why we need to be doing that, what companies are due to implement those types of tools. Let's take a listen.
And I think part of it is having a better data strategy. So visualization is a part of that strategy, but if somebody out there is looking for just prettier dashboards, that means they're thinking, I need a report. If culturally they're ready to say, we need to be a data-driven company, the reason why so much of that data goes unused, I think, is because they don't have the bandwidth or the ability to get their arms around it in a meaningful way. So having a data strategy in place, allows us to greatly improve that. Having access to much greater data, hopefully accurate data, makes those visualizations much more impactful and value add. So,
can I jump on that as well? Frank, I agree with you 100% that that idea that you've got all this data, and if it's just unstructured and there's no thought put to it, then it's really hard to get insight out of it.
Yep.
But if you have this data and you actually put a little bit of work into creating a data model, and honestly, that's one of the things we do as a company, that model now provides a framework so you can do the same types of things that Netflix does or Amazon does, right? So you've got a structured data set that now you can actually use tools that are available in something like Power BI to do some artificial intelligence digging through it, where it's, as Frank said, and analytics is about trends, correlations, and outliers. Machines do that really well, but they do that really well on a structured data set. So, really we're saying put 100 million records into a data set, structure it well, and then let a computer sort through that. And that's that other 85% of the data that you're saying never gets used. It could be used, but people probably won't be doing that. Machines are going to be doing that. They won't tell us the answer, but they're going to help ask new questions we didn't think of before.
All right. So Ben and Frank talked about data, and not just visualization and dashboards, but also the structure that accompanies that data. They also talked about the usability being key. So accurate, timely data is great, but are we utilizing it? Are we leveraging it? I love that Ben talked about structured versus unstructured data. It makes me think of on my iPhone. I get this, 10 years ago today, and it shows a picture that I took 10 years ago today. It's in my Google Photos in the cloud, and I click on that, and it will bring up the date that it happened, and I can scroll through, and I can even look at photos of the same individual, so there's face recognition in it. I've got the date and the time, and it's alerting me to that. So there's actually some interaction going on. It's AI, really, is what that is, and it's the machine sharing with me those photos that are correlating on that date with those individuals, etc. So that's an example in real world, just daily life, of structured data versus unstructured data, which would be, just digital images dumped into a bin or a bucket. So a bigger bucket doesn't make it better. So essentially, I think having the opportunity to apply that same type of approach to our construction data is very useful and could be very profitable for us. So rather than dumping 8 hours in a day on an employee for their time card, we can collect which cost code did they work on, which project were they at. We can collect GPS and geofence location. We can do facial recognition. So there's lots of things that we can do with that data to add that structure and those pieces of information that are important and pertinent, so that when that's integrated into a payroll and a job cost system, the overtime rules, the union rules, all those different bits of data that are important to that information are now attached instead of bulk entry at the end of the day. This is why paper or spreadsheets are garbage, so to speak, when it comes to accuracy and truly integrating that pre-vetted, pre-populated data information that makes it more not only reliable and accurate, but ultimately make sure that it's the right information going to the right place. So love that they shared that. I think the biggest takeaway from there is that more data just in general doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's usable. And then the second piece would be, are we leveraging that data that we have? And if not, why not? So that we can get to a better use of that information that is right at our fingertips. So this next clip is from a discussion that I had with Matt Harris from Viewpoint. And Matt shares the importance of mobility and mobile solutions on the job site and why they really matter.
I think mobility is a foundational step in just getting, job site understanding of what's happening. And otherwise said, I don't see how you do this without a strong mobility platform and environment. And so, in enabling your field leadership, superintendents, 4 people, project managers, whomever, right? Equipment managers, operators, even field service technicians as well, with a platform that's going to, not only inform them what needs to be done in the days today, but also help them collect information on what's happened and relay back to them how they performed that day or that half day relative to the budget model or relative to their, the forecast is absolutely critical. And the difference makers are the companies who are doing that, and giving their teams, giving their people on the ground, making it happen, the ability to be informed, not only acquire the data, but actually be informed about how they're doing on a regular basis is instrumental, right? And it's almost like when if you're not doing that, it's like you're almost doing the project with a blindfold on, right? And
Yeah.
then we've seen it, they get the monthly, reports, right? And that, it's like, whoa, what happened? Right? It's that, we're way off, right? What went wrong? And then they scramble and, try to get into the reports and see what happened, but they're already a month behind, right? And on a 10-month job, it's, it's hard to catch up, right? And so the difference between getting information for the right people at the right time for the right decisions and not doing that is really, it's almost like you can't imagine how to run a project if you're not doing it that way.
All right. So what I really like about what Matt shared is that just having the tools isn't enough anymore. We've got to be using the tools correctly and in the best manner. As I shared earlier, the JB Knowledge Report, 93% of construction workers for all of the last 5 years have a smartphone in their hand or in their pocket. And so that's a tool. And now the question is, what technology tools are being utilized on that device in order to get that better data? One of the things that I like that he shared is he talked about even a half day and having that visibility by lunch, what happened since the morning. And at the end of the day, having a catch up of where things are at. So he's talking about near real time. Obviously, real time accuracy would be even better. So just love that he's sharing that and talking about that, beating that drum, because it's something that I believe pretty strongly in as well. The other thing is I like that he talked about having that visibility up front so that you're not making decisions on 3 or 4 week old data is much better. And of course, ultimately is going to help us to remain profitable, especially as we're getting into 2022. At this point, we've got a fruitful market, plenty of opportunity. And Matt's recommendation is to tap into those mobile tools in order to build things better and more efficiently. All right, in this next clip, we're going to hear from Stuart Binstock, the president and CEO of CFMA. I've had Stuart on the podcast a few times this year, and I've really enjoyed each of those conversations. This particular one, he's talking about the importance of prioritizing mental health and also essentially the importance of individuals within an organization and a company and how important people are.
Create a healthy and well-being kind of culture, a caring culture in your organization. That's one of the ways in which you can do this. I encourage folks to look at this needs analysis and integration checklist. And I think if a company goes through that, they'll probably learn some things along the way that they can do better to support their people. Because at the outset, and let me be very clear about this, the most important asset a construction company has are its people. And if you're not going to invest in your people, then you're missing out on the most valuable resource, and you're missing out on the place where you can probably make the biggest difference.
All right. I love that Stuart shared how important people are to a construction company. I think it's the same for any organization out there. Love that he talked about the importance of creating that place where people feel safe and have that connection to other team members. I think we can all attest that when we work together with others and we have that camaraderie and also that teammate mentality, that it's a more enjoyable experience overall. I think also some of the nuances that come with that are people will be more excited to come to work if they know that they matter and they feel that they matter. So I think it's important, as Stuart points out, as the CEO and president of CFMA, there's also some financial benefits to having a safe and a nice work environment for people to come in and be in the workplace with people that they feel comfortable around, that they trust. So I think just giving people an opportunity to be a part of something that's accomplishing something and working together is a great place to start to also improve on the financial side and actually building and growing your business. All right, this next clip is with Cody Rich. Cody's an entrepreneur and shares some great wisdom with us on how to build processes as construction leaders so that we're more efficient and actually problem solving as a team, not just individually.
That's the bottleneck, right? And like
Right.
these things happen, and that's a litmus test, right? Like his crew failed inspection and we got to be back there. Like, didn't get to go golfing today. But like, instead of being like, God dang it, why don't you fix this? Shoot darn. Like, it's like, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Like what processes can I build so I don't have this problem, and like, that's it. Like, just keep building processes until you solve all the problems, your biggest headaches. We sit here and be like, man, I go back to this firefighter analogy. Like, I'm constantly the firefighter in my own company. And half the problem is that those problems are always changing and they're always growing. Right. And so like, I'll solve one problem and up pops two more. But that's life. It's like, as soon as you cut off the head of one snake, here out pops another. But that's the game to me, is like, how do we build these systems and solve these problems? And then when you get really good at this, it's like, okay, how do I empower my people to solve the problems so I don't have to? How do I get the people to be cutting off the snakes' heads so I'm not doing it for them?
All right, I really love that Cody shared that we need to remove the bottlenecks from our processes. He admitted that in his business, oftentimes he's the bottleneck. And so I like that he points out that it's important that we empower our coworkers, and not only our management team, but field personnel and laborers all the way down the chain, because people need to be able to make certain decisions on their own and not have to look over their shoulder in order to keep the progress of the project moving forward. And Cody points out that oftentimes he feels like a firefighter in his business, and I think we can all relate to that. So empowering others, giving them the opportunity to make certain decisions. In the full episode, I remember Cody talked about giving a line of credit to his employees and allowing them to make certain decisions based on a monetary value, so that if it's a smaller decision, they're not tied up waiting for management or the owner to actually tell them what they need to do and tying them up. So to me, that's the essence of removing a bottleneck. So love that, love his wisdom, and also I think it's great advice for all of us. Let's empower people, give them trust, allow them to grow, and they will be able to continually take those smaller decisions off our plate if we're management or owners. And from there, the business should be able to function with less bottlenecks and more efficiently. All right, in this next clip, we hear from Ann Flegger, who is the past president of NAWIC, the National Association for Women in Construction. And she talks about how the industry has shifted in regard to female workers.
You still hear a lot of people saying that women work in a male-dominated industry. I don't like to say that anymore. Yes, we're working in a male-populated, because we still only encompass about 10%. But we are seeing more women, like you mentioned, in executive positions, influencing the direction. You're seeing more women on the job site with boots on the ground, actually building these buildings or roads or any types of construction projects. So yeah, it's male populated now. It's not male dominated.
All right. I love that Ann points out that construction is now male populated and not dominated. I think that's a keen way of stating this shift that's happening, and I think it's a great thing. The big thing here is the organization she's with, the National Association for Women in Construction, NAWIC. They have chapters all over the country. There's a National Association for Women in Roofing. There's also Canadian Association for Women. That's KWIC. There's PWC, Professional Women in Construction. I found all these organizations, some of them have been around for over 40 years, and they're out doing work to try and help promote opportunities for women within our industry. And so I think it's a great thing. It's certainly needed at this time. There's a lot of talent gaps. There are a lot of very sharp and capable women that we can leverage their abilities and their talents, and they can make a great living within the industry. So I appreciate what Ann shared with us and what she's doing, and others like her. And we probably support them and are excited that we were able to have them on the podcast and have that important discussion. All right, this next discussion clip is with Wayne Newitz. Wayne is with Viewpoint, and he talks and shares about the types of data that construction companies should be collecting.
Any and all data is potentially valuable. But it is only valuable if it kind of meets three general criteria, and that's, is it accurate? Kind of no-brainer. Is it real time? Because the longer the shelf life, the less accurate it actually tends to be. But also something we'll hopefully talk about a little bit is it connected? Are your data points connected, or do you just have a big old bucket of data that you have to go fishing through, right? So really any data is of value if it's accurate, real time, and connected. And that means you can put it to some use.
All right. I love the points that Wayne made about the data and what makes it of value. And the first is accuracy. And he mentioned timely. And the more timely, then likely the more accurate. And then lastly, is it connected? Essentially, is that data able to be shared across platforms and people so that multiple stakeholders have the ability to interact with that data, not only just view it, but possibly interact. Also love the point that he made about the bucket of data and how a bigger bucket doesn't mean it's better. So I think I shared that a little earlier. I think that's really just some great stuff here. So appreciated having Wayne's input on the podcast. All right, this next clip is from David Swider from Innate, and he talks about why are platforms with collaborative capabilities more successful than those that are without.
It really is, right? And then if you have that, think of what else you get. As somebody who might not know the answer to that why, now you have that data inference in your hands. So why? Well, you can take out the anomalies. Well, why do we think these crews get 40 welds an hour when everything we say show they get 20 welds an hour? Well, then why build the next estimate out that says 40 welds an hour? Because as soon as you flip it over, your guys in the field are 20 welds short an hour. Now they're playing that game. So you're already kicking somebody out of the blocks in a bad way. So that's why we think, again, a collaborative platform allows us to set scope early, identify those markers, track the progress against those, and truly give visibility to all the players. It's not a secret. I mean, can't really say it's not a secret sauce, but it's mathematics and it's visibility and transparency that, again, I think the companies that are succeeding now are providing to their customers.
All right. I love that David shared that analogy of the production quantities of welds per hour and having that visibility. And not only as it pertains to the current job, but also the jobs in the future when you're dealing with an estimate. So another often overlooked fact is the implications for estimating that tracking true production has. These are the things that business owners, management need at their fingertips. It's like it reminded me of the old Ford pickup truck that my neighbor used to have, and he would literally dip a stick down the gas tank to see how much gas was left in it. And today, there's no excuse for that. We have all these tools. Now, that truck did have a gas gauge on it. It was just broken. And all it was is basically from empty to full. Today, we have dashboards, so to speak. He talked about the dashboards that can show how many miles do we have on that tank so far? How many miles per gallon are we currently consuming? How many miles to empty, right? What's at our current rate? How long until we run out of fuel? There's all these other analytics that we can gather because of technology. And our construction company doesn't need to be any different. We really don't have to use the stick in the gas tank anymore. Unfortunately, there are companies all over the place. I talk to them almost every day, or at least people within our organization do, that are still using the stick in the gas tank. And so that analogy would be paper and pencils, maybe spreadsheets even at times could be similar to that. But at this current state in technology, with 93+% of field employees having a smartphone in their pocket, we can put apps on there. We can collect data in real time. Foremen can do it for their crew, or people can do it for themselves. But we need to get rid of the stick and plug into these opportunities that we actually have right now. Again, when it comes to, if we're talking about mobile application and fuel economy, right? I can even do GPS with voice navigation and all these other things that can help me get there more efficiently besides just the fuel. So what other parts of the project care about this information? David talked about the estimating side. And so this isn't just job costs and payroll and job cost accounting, but again, the estimators that are bidding new jobs today that are like the jobs that we finished yesterday would love to have insight into that information. And today we have the tools to do so. And like David pointed out, with the right collaborative solution in place, everybody that's a stakeholder within the project can have that same visibility and be looking for the same exact source of truth of data. All right, this next clip is with Angela Highland. Angela is actually a past president of her local NAWIC chapter in Florida, in the Orlando area. So she was a fun guest to have on, and she talked about ways that individuals in construction can find a good mentor for them. And I thought it was a pretty insightful conversation, and let's take a listen to that.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. First, you've got to get out there and meet people. If you're doing it within your own company, you really do have to become very social. You got to get to know people and get to know them and ask questions, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to figure out if that's a good person for you, right? So that's one way. Another thing is that if you're working with somebody that you really admire and you just click with and you just think that they've got something to offer, go talk to them. Because, people love to be needed. So if you walk up to somebody in your office or out on the job site and say, I'm really struggling with this, and I noticed that this is easy for you, or you seem to handle this really well. Can you help me with that? And sometimes that's all you have to do is ask for help. That's a big one.
All right. What I really liked about this conversation with Angela is she pointed out a few things to me that as I look back on my career in construction and even since in the technology space, she talked about how important it is to find a good mentor. And I think most of us, if we look back, we probably had somebody who taught us something in our trade or something within our organization that maybe we didn't know before. And whether or not they were someone that we designated as our mentor, or even if they maybe didn't know they were, we were paying attention to what they were doing and trying to learn from them. So I think Angela's just giving us a call to action to be more proactive and to be more on purpose on not only finding a mentor in order to improve our skills and add to our knowledge and our value to our organization, but also let's proactively try and mentor those that are younger, or maybe that are less experienced in our trade or our craft or within our role. And so that, again, we can help our organization to be more well-rounded, to have duplicity in capabilities within the organization. If we want to take a vacation or need some time off, or we have some reason or another that we get sick or that we're unavailable to work, it would be nice and better for us, even as individuals, if somebody else was able to pick up that slack and take over while we were out. So I think this is great advice for all of us. Everybody wants to belong to something greater than themselves, and I think mentoring is one way that we can really help to do that. I think the other thing is, of course, we spend just mathematically about 25% of the hours in our week, and most people's 40-plus hour week, are spent with those that we work with professionally at the office or at the job site or wherever it is. And so because we're spending so much of that time, probably more waking hours than we are with our own families, that we try and lock arms with those that we work with and try and build a cohesive team that we can, again, feel good to help and assist, and also know that we can turn to the right or the left and get help and assistance from others as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed these and we're able to pick up something insightful from Angela and the others that we've shared with. So I think this, for our year-end episode, is kind of a wrap-up on some of the things that we've learned this year on the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I've really enjoyed these first 52 episodes, and I'm looking forward to these other conversations that we'll be having as we continue in the weeks forward. If we haven't learned anything this year, other than this is a year of challenges and obstacles and first times of all kinds of different things within not only our economy generally, but especially in our industry. We've overcome many, many challenges that have continued to come at us. And even though some of the approaches have been less conventional than we would have imagined earlier, having gone through this, I can say that most people that I talk to have figured out how to do certain things better, how to fill gaps and voids that have been exposed from the challenges that we've had. So I've appreciated the opportunity to share these guests and these conversations with everyone up to this point. And I'm just really excited to continue to move forward into 2022 and beyond. I think just the last thing I would say, if you haven't learned anything else from the podcast, I think that we don't fail when we lose, we fail when we quit. So since we're not going to quit, right, we're going to continue forward. Let's grab ourselves by the technology bootstraps and pull our boots on and get out there in 2022 being bigger and better. And hopefully, as we pull those on, we'll get out there and kick some butt in 2022 and make it our best year ever.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.